Serving their community is who they are because they love where they live. REMAX 3D Real Estate is proud to bring you Heart of Greenville, a video series dedicated to celebrating all the wonderfully great things about Greenville, Texas. On every episode, Dennisha Denney will share Greenville's story through the stories of people who call Greenville home. This is Heart of Greenville.
Thank you so much for watching Heart of Greenville. Our show would not be possible without our sponsors, so I want to give a quick shout out to REMAX 3D Real Estate and to Triton Networks. REMAX 3D Real Estate serves Hunt County and all of the surrounding areas as well. Triton Networks is a great business partner for all of your communication needs, including your voice, data, network security, and your cloud. Our guest today is the mayor. Mayor Jerry Ransom. I wanted him to come on the show today because I wanted you to really get to meet the man who not only serves in a leadership capacity, but has done so much for our community over the years with his generosity. Here's my conversation with the mayor. Hey y'all, I'm Dennisha Denney, your host of Heart of Greenville, and today we're sitting down at the Landmark on Lee on the 3rd floor at the Landing, and I have a very special guest today. It's our very own mayor, Jerry Ransom. How are you today, Jerry?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited about being here.
It only took me all summer to finally get you on the show.
Well, I know. Well, I've only been mayor about 3 months, and it's just very, very busy. I realized Mayor Dreiling was busy, but I really didn't have any idea about how busy he really was. So just a lot going on. We're growing very quickly, and there's just a lot of stuff that needs attention from time to time. So anyway.
It does. And thank you so much for stepping up. I know you were on council for a while and now stepping up and being the mayor. And I want us to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
But I really want people to get to know you, Jerry Ransom. Who are you as a person? They see you with the title. They know some of the things you've done, but I don't think people really know you. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you got to Greenville.
Well, I grew up in western Oklahoma on a small farm, and my parents were small farmers and cattlemen. My grandmother had settled Oklahoma in a covered wagon. Her family settled twice in a covered wagon. I'll tell you a story about that. Yeah. And the first time they didn't survive and had to go back to Kansas. And the second time they settled there, they had 11 brothers and sisters, and during the Depression and Dust Bowl, about half of those moved to California. So she settled in Oklahoma in a covered wagon, and she lived long enough. She was 103 years old when she passed to go visit them in a 747 airplane.
Really?
So that's kind of an interesting story, I think. And
that is so
I went
neat.
to a one-room schoolhouse. I had myself and 3 other girls in my class. One of them had what we know probably now as ADD. And when we graduated from 8th grade, we graduated to a high school. It was a small high school in western Oklahoma. And it was small enough. I'm not very athletic, but I was able to play all 3 sports all 4 years in high school. And
what was your favorite one?
I was best at basketball, of course, but I played football and baseball. We had teams that went to the state finals in baseball and had good basketball teams and whatever. So yes, that was always interesting. There's a lot to learn from competitive sports, I think, and it was more competitive now than I think it is then than it is now.
What was it like growing up in that small town?
I don't know. Everybody knew everybody. We didn't lock our doors. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was people helped others. You know, we had kind of a different attitude, I guess. Mm-hmm. It was really a small town. There were, I think, 23 in my graduating class in high school. Wow. And from 8th grade, I knew that I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer, and I wanted to go to the University of Oklahoma. And when I graduated from high school, my parents wanted me to go to a smaller school, but I decided to go to the University of Oklahoma. And when I got there, it didn't take very long to decide that I wanted a broader education in science and engineering and that sort of thing. So I majored in engineering physics, and I was active on campus, did a number of things. Happened to be in a fraternity. I mostly worked 2 jobs when I was in college. One of my favorite jobs was I was a houseboy for a sorority for 3 years. And
that was your favorite, huh?
Well,
I can see why.
It was nice. And I got 20 meals a week and $20 a month back then.
Wow.
So tuition when I went there was $3 an hour. And
that's incredible.
I think the room and board at my first year was $356 a semester at the
Wow.
dorm I lived in. So that's kind of dating me a little bit. So,
But that's such an interesting and great point of reference. So what year was that approximately?
well, I graduated in 1966.
Okay.
So that was in the early 60s when I was doing that. And it was, I don't know, it was a wonderful time. I enjoyed, the best jobs I've ever had was going to college. I mean, when you think about it.
That's so true.
Yeah, it is.
You don't know what's coming.
No, I know. So that was good. And then, of course, out of college, I got a job with what was then LTV Electro Systems here in Greenville, and I moved here in 1966. And got to work on some really, really interesting projects. One of the things that LTV had back then was it was a remote learning program where they had televised courses from SMU at that facility. Wow. So I started working on a master's degree when I came here, and that went well. And the reason I liked that is they had a lot of Texas Instruments professors and people like that actually the things you learned were practical. You could take them and apply them in the work you were doing every day. So I just kept taking classes. And finally they asked, one of the professors that I'd gotten to know asked me to come over and do a PhD, and I declined it that year. I'd never thought I wanted to do that. And then they asked me the second year, and I did that. And so that's how I got my graduate degrees at SMU. And then I came back and worked at what was then, it had become E-Systems by the time I came back, and worked on, you probably heard of the rivet joint project out
Yes,
there.
sir.
I guess I was one of the original engineers, of several engineers, I don't want to take credit for it, that worked on rivet joint. And it was an interesting time. I mean, technology, I remember, we think about this now, one of the things we got was a 4.9 megabyte, that's 5 million bytes of storage in a 19-inch disk drive, and now you can get that on something the size of a piece of salt or something. But anyway,
yes,
it was unbelievable. We were so proud of that back then, and some of the stuff that we did, and it was just an interesting time. I loved working out there. It was really about the time I left, we got what was at that time the biggest contract in the history of the company. It was $78 million, a follow-on to rivet joint.
Wow.
And that's small potatoes now. A rivet joint costs a lot more than that.
Yes.
One rivet joint costs a lot more than that now. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed working with the Air Force people that we worked with, and I enjoyed working with still have friends, Jim Adams.
I know
Jim Adams
yes.
and Gene. I worked for him a lot of the time I was out there, and just really, really enjoyed it. A lot of the people are still around that we worked with.
How long were you there?
I was there 12 years,
Okay.
and left at 66 to 78.
Okay.
And then I left to start my first company, which was, it was a company, we did computer-aided transcription systems for court reporters. And
What does that mean?
Well,
put that in layman terms for me.
Well, court reporters, as you know, they write phonetically on a stenotype machine that has 22 keys. And I was interested in doing something else, and I was visiting with an attorney friend of mine in Oklahoma over Christmas. And he had a criminal trial on appeal that he couldn't appeal because they couldn't produce the transcript of the previous trial so he could appeal the trial. And he just said in passing, he said, you ought to be able to you know about computers, you ought to be able to do something about that. So we went to Oklahoma to visit my parents, and we came back to Greenville, and it was still between Christmas and New Year's. So I came down to the courthouse, and there was a court reporter down there named Lucille White. She worked for, forgotten which judge she worked for, but anyway, she was a court reporter. And there had been a case north of Greenville where a domestic case where a husband had actually shot his wife up somewhere around Wolf City. And he had been on trial, and she was typing the transcript for that trial. And I looked down. Remember when you used to get paper in a box?
Yes.
That paper in a box? And she was typing this transcript on her typewriter. And she typed it, put another page in the box, and she just put the page in the box, and it was page 1,361. And I thought, my gosh, if she's typing that much, maybe we can do something. So I decided, she gave me some leads about going to a court reporting school that had a nascent system in Dallas. And I went over there, and it was a big IBM system. It cost a lot, and the software really didn't work. But the guy had it there kind of as a placeholder so he could tell students that he was up to date with court reporting. But anyway, that's how I got interested in it, and I knew microcomputer technology, and so I scaled all that down and did it. So the idea wasn't really original, but some of the stuff that I did, some of the original work was what you hear about artificial intelligence today. I did some of that, and they write phonetically, but they all write differently. And so if you were a court reporter and you said state your name for the record, please, you would hit the keys differently than I would. Or for a word jurisprudence, for example, there's probably 15 derivatives of the way court reporters write that differently, and I developed a system that learned your writing style and would learn my individual writing style, so the more you used it, the better it would work.
Wow. So it was personalized, really?
Yes, it was. Yes, it learned.
Wow. What year was that? To give me a point of
Well, I
reference
sold
for
the
that?
first system in 1980, and then I had non-competes.
Wow, that's so advanced.
That was a floppy disk drive system.
Wow.
And I had non-competes, so I got into the healthcare business and developed a pharmacy system for just regular pharmacies that operate pharmacies. It's an interesting business. And when the non-competes expired, there was new technology. New computers were coming out. I can't even think of the name of them, but anyway, the Intel-based computers that we know today, like laptops and that sort of thing, were coming out. And we developed a second system that actually it recorded a lot of famous trials. Two of the most famous trials it did was both of O.J. Simpson's trials.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
and so...
That was a big televised event.
Yeah, it
that
was,
went
yeah.
on.
And we actually had a version of real-time transcription, so the court reporters would write, and Judge Ito, who was the judge, could see the transcript coming across. So there were times when attorneys would ask questions, and he could go back in the transcript and look what had been said. Now, it hadn't all been corrected at that time, but
Right.
that's what it was.
But enough that he could understand it
Yeah,
and interpret it.
he could
and
interpret what was going on, yeah.
Wow, that's
So, it
valuable
was
information.
interesting.
To have basically it's in real time.
Yeah.
That you can go back and
So I sold that, then I sold that company to the same company, Stenotype Corporation in Chicago, had built those machines for years, since almost World War II.
Wow.
Court reporters are very, very talented people, and they can, in a room with, I think they certify like 225 words a minute in a courtroom. So in a courtroom, they can catch everything that goes on. And they've tried to replace those people over the years with recorders. So they put a mic on you, a mic on me, and they'd tape all of it and try to make it work, but they were never able to do that, never able to replicate what a court reporter can do in a room. They're very talented. Only a few ever become certified, though. It's, if there's, I think probably only 10 or 15% of the people that go to school ever reach that level.
Really?
Yeah.
That's intense. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in the middle of a trial and you're trying to catch everything that everyone is saying, and you can't really get involved in what they're saying.
Yeah.
Just transcribing
and a lot
that.
of it is really complex medical testimony. I knew some ladies in Houston that used my system, and she was always doing medical type malpractice and all that stuff, and it's just amazing what they're able to do.
That is incredible. So then you later when did you open Omnisys?
Well, the original company was called Bluff Creek Systems, which is a little creek I grew up on in western Oklahoma. And then the first one was Cimarron Systems, then Bluff Creek Systems, and then Omnisys was a company that after I sold those two systems, I got into the healthcare business. And we did pharmacy management systems for just regular retail pharmacies, like a McGoy's Drug, or they used the system.
So was it their software they used behind the scenes, like for the prescriptions and
yeah, it was software
the point
that we
of sale
developed.
and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it didn't have point of sale, but it did manage. There were a lot of aspects to pharmacy, drug-to-drug interactions, for example, geriatric precautions, pediatric precautions, all that. It did all of those types of things. Right. And then at that time, there were probably 7 or 8 ways that you can pay for a prescription, and so it managed that also and did a rolling profit and loss and all that. So it was a really nice system. And then we got into pharmacies but this may be too much information.
No, it's interesting to me. I've always been curious.
Pharmacies do have to sell items that are covered by Medicare Part B, and that is complete. When you probably have a prescription benefit card, and when you go in, that card is processed like a credit card transaction.
Right.
So they know who you are, what your formulary is, what the copay will be, and all those kinds of things. And pharmacies are required to sell items that are covered by Medicare Part B, which is respiratory drugs, immunosuppressive drugs, diabetic testing supplies, and then hard items like hospital beds, wheelchairs, crutches, canes, all that kind of stuff. And they about have to sell them because they're in the business of healthcare, but they didn't know how to bill. First of all, bill the government for them, and then when they did get billed, they didn't know how to reconcile that they'd been paid. And then in addition to that, there's several level of payments. Most people have a Medicare Part B card, a supplemental card, and then there's a co-insurance and deductible involved. And so we had a system that was really more sophisticated than the system that's used now for prescription benefit processing that would process those kinds of claims online. Like CVS has had at the time 12,000 pharmacists. So it's impossible to teach them everything you have to know about Medicare, and I had experts that knew all of the billing rules and all that stuff, and we implemented those in programs. So if you sent a claim in for crutches, for example, we could look at you and see where your deductible was, what the copay would be. If you have Medicare, we bill them. If you have a secondary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then we could reconcile those claims when they got paid.
Wow.
And so that was one of the products we had at Omnisys when we were that really helped us when we moved to 1570. And for example, that same program, now we build, I'm not involved in the company anymore, but I know they build millions of COVID claims.
Oh, I'm sure.
Millions and millions of COVID claims. When I left there in 2010, we had about 25,000 pharmacies. We'd always had Walmart, we had CVS, Walgreens, and then there are dozens of chains that have 500 to 100, across the country, and we had all those. And so we had about 25,000 pharmacies using the system, and about 8,000 court reporters used the system I developed at one time. So
that is so
anyway,
cool. You blazed the trail for those two industries
I don't know.
made things easier. I mean, you were the advanced technology in that season for those two industries.
Yeah, one of the things that we had is I had a great team of people that understood the business, and particularly in healthcare. I mean, when you sit down with a programmer, you've got to have a basic understanding of all the words I just used: deductible, copay, co-insurance, and all that stuff. You don't have time to explain all those details, so they can go implement a program. And I had a team that completely understood those, and it was just amazing. It would take a new programmer. We'd have good programmers, but it'd take them usually 6 months to really understand, so they knew the language, so they knew what they were implementing. It's kind of interesting. I had a team like that. It was kind of unique.
Very specialized.
Yeah,
They had to be very specialized.
Yeah.
So did you end up selling the company?
Yes,
Ultimately?
in 2007, during the financial crisis, about 6 months before that, somebody walked in and made an offer for the company, and essentially I essentially sold it about 6 months later, and then I ran it for them until 2010.
Was that hard for you? You didn't own it, but to be there.
Well, it was. Well, I still had a part of the company, but yeah, it was a little hard. It was a private equity company, and they obviously they'd spent the money, and it was just a lot of work helping them learn the business, and then running the business too. I'd been running the business, but I didn't have anybody to answer to. And so at that point in time, I had bosses too, and it was a little different. And it got along fine, but it was just an additional job that I had to do all the time, and they were always curious about what was going on, so I had to keep them informed.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So anyway.
Well, I know along the way of building these companies, you also have been very involved in our community. So let's talk about some of the different positions you've served on, different boards and those sorts of things over the years.
Well, after I sold the first company in 1981 or 82, I was a member of the city council, and at that time, JUICE, what we know now as JUICE, Greenville Electric Utility System, it was working with TMPA. You've heard of TMPA. It was a coal lignite-fired plant down in Anderson County, and I served on that board. And then as a result of that experience, I was chairman of the Utility Study Committee. What we had is we had our electric rates were out of control. And what had happened is the utility was a part of the city, and so if we needed additional revenue for a year, we just raised utility rates instead of raising taxes. There were people that felt like it was people that were city fathers at that time thought it was a fair tax to tax everybody by raising utility rates because everybody used electricity instead of just property owners. And so what happened over time is our utility rates got completely out of hand. I think our residential rates were 35 or 40% higher.
Wow.
And so juice needed to be separated to operate on its own like a business. And I was chairman of a study committee, that 15-member committee that unanimously recommended that we separate from the city and operate autonomously. We didn't get completely separated, but it's been a good example of how it's worked, and we've had very, very competitive utility rates since that time. I don't know where we were at some time. I don't know where they are just now, right now, but they're probably lower than, at times they were lower than anywhere in the state. So that was good. That was good for us.
And they still are. I
Yeah.
know they still do work really hard to be competitive
Yeah,
with their
they
rates
are.
and,
Yes.
and have been.
Yeah.
I've said we need those rate cards in the utility bills. When I was
Yeah.
on the board, I'm like, we need these cards so everyone can see. The rates
Yeah.
are really so much
Yeah,
better
they
than you
are.
can
Pe-
get
yeah, they
in
are.
other places.
They are, yeah. And, that's one of the things. I mean, Alicia Price is just a great, I'm sure you know Alicia.
Oh,
She's a
yes.
great leader.
Yes,
And
she is.
they have such great people. We have great people in all our leadership portions, places in the community, I think, and I'd like to talk about that
Absolutely.
sometime. But anyway,
Yes.
I served on that, and then I served on several other boards, and then somebody asked me when I had a little more time to run for city council, and I was on the city council 6 years, the past 6 years before I ran for mayor this time. And we've been pretty proactive. We've lowered the tax rate 11 cents. I know the tax rate's subjective. It's not an indication of what you actually pay in taxes, but we've done some great things that I'll like to talk about sometime.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Yeah, if you want to take
So-
a minute and talk about that for a second, I know that's kind of on everybody's mind at this very
well,
moment.
it is right now. Yes,
Right.
it is. Well, historically, in the last 5 years, we've really strived to. One of the things that happened is the citizens about 5 years ago voted for a $12.6 million bond that was going to raise our taxes 6.2 cents. And that year, the city council absorbed that entire tax increase. So we didn't raise taxes as a result of that. And so we've continued to reduce the tax rate over time. Now, 3 years ago, we implemented the effective rate minus a half a cent, which meant that people would not have to, year over year, their dollar amount that they paid would be equal to or less than they paid the prior year. I don't think that's ever been done in the history of
Right.
Greenville. It hadn't been done in the last 30 years or so.
Right.
And then we've continued to reduce the tax rate. I think with what we'll do with this budget, we will reduce the tax rate
Right.
11 cents in the last, from about 69.9 to 59, I think. That's about 11 cents in the last 5 years, I guess. So
That's wonderful.
historically, we've been very focused on that. Worked with Brent Money on the council to do that, and a lot of other council members supported it too. Holly Gocher and whatever. We've been so I'm
And
proud of that.
I appreciate the time that you guys put into that,
Yeah.
to really analyze the entire budget, everything that's really needed to find what's best for our citizens.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy task.
No, it's not. It's just amazing. We have meetings twice a month, and the material we're usually given at least to prepare for those meetings. And you served on the juice board. We probably get 150 pages to review every 2 weeks. And then in addition to that, there's a lot of other email and other things. It's just amazing. And we have a lot of people, I'm retired now, but we have a lot of people who are on the council that have day jobs. And we need young people serving on the council. I'm
Yes.
excited about that. But it's just amazing how much how time-consuming it is.
It really is, in order to be effective,
Well,
to
yeah.
really know what's going on and know what questions to ask and what to look for.
We have 3 or 4 people that have full-time jobs. Tim Cruz is traveling all the time. Ben Collins is busy. Kristen is busy. And yet they have time to give to their community. And my goodness, that's great, as busy as I know they are,
Yes.
you know. So,
But it's
and
good.
we need more young people like that.
Yes,
so.
we do. I think it's good to have a variety.
Well,
you know,
it
we
is.
need the wisdom of the people who've gone before us, and then we need the fresh and new ideas of
Yeah.
the new. And I think the combination of that is a great combination
Yeah.
for any community to have that balance.
I kind of look at the city as a business, and we have revenues, which we have from, ad valorem taxes and sales tax, and then we have other fees and that sort of thing, and we have expenses. And we provide our citizens a broad range of services. So our citizens are really our customers, right?
Right.
So one of the primary services we have is public safety, so police and fire. Well, that's kind of an on-demand service. You may have never used it in the last 3 years, right? But when
Right.
you need it, you
need it.
You really need it, right?
Yes.
And then we have services that some people don't have. Some cities don't have a library.
Right.
Some citizens don't have some cities don't have a golf course, for example. And then we're a very fast-growing city, so
Right.
growth consumes cash. So when people make the statement that our taxes are too high, that's a very, very subjective thing. And it's hard to know. I mean, if we're satisfying 95, we're never going to satisfy all the citizens.
Right.
But if most of the citizens are happy with the services we provide, we have an animal shelter.
Right.
That's if the citizens are happy with that, well then the services we provide, well that's that's the way I kind of look at the
Yes.
city as just as a business. So
And I love that. I think that's great. I think that's, it's good to have that mindset, because that's not always the mindset within that organization, not necessarily
Yeah.
our organization, but within a city. And you're having so many people come from different walks of life that add that. And so
Yeah.
you're coming at it from business experience, from having, built 2 companies and sold them. And so it gives another perspective. And so I'm so thankful for that. You and I could sit and talk about the city for the rest of the day. So
well,
because we both love the city. We
Well-
love the city of Greenville,
well-
and I know you do. I have a question for you.
living here and locating my business here was always a choice for me. As my business grew, I had chances to go to McKinney. As you know, they have aggressive economic development in Royce City or even Tyler, and I always wanted to be here. And I lived on Stonewall for a long time, and when I built a home, I wanted to be in Greenville. So that's always been a choice for me. I love Greenville. I've been here over 50 years now. So
And I love that you still choose to be here.
yeah, I do.
So
That's where-
let's talk about a couple of things real quick. What are some of your favorite things to do or places to go here in Greenville? What are some things that you love about Greenville?
Well, I've spent quite a bit of time and some money trying to renovate the Oaks Country Club. I'm sure you've been out there.
Yes.
And my goal is to make that, it's a 9-hole course, but it's very, very, I don't know if you've been there, but it's very, very nice.
Yes.
And my goal is to make it the best 9-hole golf course in Texas, the best 9-hole course. And we're a long way toward our goal. And this year,
I'm so glad you're doing that, though.
Yeah.
That's been there all of my life, or at least all that I can
Yeah.
remember, and I love seeing the transformation.
This year we had a qualifier there. We were the only 9-hole course in Texas to have a qualifier for the Texas State Open.
Wow.
And we had 2 people that qualified, and
That's
that
awesome.
was nice. We're getting ready to have the annual Andy Holder tournament in September 11th and 12th. We're hosting a Wounded Warriors tournament in November, so we're beginning to get some recognition statewide for some of the things that we do, and I'm excited about that. What else do I like to do? For years and years, I drank coffee at the Royal Drive-In every morning.
Yes.
I don't know.
Where's your new location?
Well,
Where do you guys meet?
I stopped setting my alarm, and I try to sleep in now. But
Okay.
I'm pretty busy too in the morning, so I don't do that anymore. But I don't know. I enjoy hanging out at home, hanging out with friends. We enjoy eating out here, even in Greenville. Have some
Yes.
good restaurants here. Enjoy
Good.
that. So
You give back to this community so much in a financial way as well. So where did that come from? You don't have to give the way that you give, but you choose to really give back in that way.
I think that came from my grandmother. When we were, I had a very modest upbringing, and I lived with people that probably even have more modest upbringing than I did. And we had needy people in our community, and every Christmas and Thanksgiving and that sort of thing, my grandmother would encourage me to do something. We'd make donuts or bread or something and go give it to people. And I guess it came from that. But I enjoy giving back, and I've enjoyed. I like doing that. So makes me happy, and I've been blessed enough that I'm able to do that. So.
Thank you so much for doing that. From me to you, I just want to say thank you. And
Well,
I
thank
know
you.
so many different areas that you've really donated generously in, and we're blessed as a community to have that. And you've helped raise the bar for
Well,
our
thank you
community
very
and
much.
provide
I
those
appreciate that.
different
Yeah.
services and organizations
I'm
to
proud of
different
the things
people.
that I've done. I've also been involved in several projects at the University of Oklahoma. I built what is called the Ransom Short Course, which is a practice course for the men's and women's golf team, and I'm involved with the new Texas, the PGA headquarters is going to be over in Frisco. I'm working with them on some naming rights over there. So.
So stay tuned. There's
I've
more
been-
to talk about, right?
And I'm very involved in junior golf. We have a tournament at Royal Oaks every year called the Jerry Ransom Pro Junior Am golf deal, where last year we raised about $150,000. So for junior golf, Northern Texas PGA hosts. I don't know, probably 600 junior tournaments for kids across the region. And a couple of years ago, they gave me the Byron Nelson Award for what I did. So
Really? Oh,
that's very honored
congratulations.
to get something like that. Yeah.
That's a
So-
huge honor.
Well, it is because of the way he was, Byron Nelson
Yes.
was. So.
So where did your passion for golf come from?
I don't know. When I moved here, I was interested in golf. I was playing a little golf as I graduated from the University of Oklahoma, and I came down here, and I was self-taught. I used to get up in the morning and when I worked at LTV and E-Systems and go out to the course at shag balls, and I'd hit balls myself as soon as at daylight, and I'd come back and go home, take a shower, and put a suit and tie on and go to work. So that's how I started doing that. I just have always enjoyed it, yeah.
Was that like a stress release for you, or is that just
Maybe it
kind of,
was, I don't know.
You got your mind right at the beginning of the day to
I
take
guess
on the
maybe
day?
it was, yeah. Well, sometimes golf doesn't make your mind right.
Well, that's true. It can get your mind way off track.
Yeah, it does.
It brings
So-
on a challenge, though,
Yeah,
for
I know.
you.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, I've always enjoyed that. And,
Okay, Mayor, I said I was going to ask you a final question.
Okay.
And I need a number between 1 and 20, and that's going to determine your final question.
well, 7,
7. Okay, so tell me why you chose 7.
because it's my birth month.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Number 7. If you could have a superpower, what would you choose?
I don't know. One of the things that I get to do, or have gotten to do the last few years, is go out to the Boys and Girls Club and talk to them about government and just about giving and that sort of thing. And it's so heartrending for me because those children out there, I know don't have the same opportunities that my children have had, and they're not biased by cable news, and they're smiling, they're happy, and to be able to influence and work with children like that, I think that's the most favorite thing I get to do as city council, as mayor pro tem, and now I haven't done it yet as mayor. I hope I get to go back, but that's something I really, really enjoy.
So that's not really a superpower. You just go and do that and make that happen.
Well, I don't know. I hope.
The superpower is to be able to do it more than just a little bit, right? To really go
Well, I
in
guess
and
it
have
is.
that
But if I could
influence.
influence those young people more, I always tell them you could be mayor, you can be governor, you could be president of the United States, and maybe some of them will be someday.
Oh,
So,
wouldn't that be awesome?
It would
that would
be,
be
yeah.
so cool. They just need to hear someone say that they believe in them, that they
Yeah.
can do that,
But
that they can
it's
still
just,
dream.
it's really interesting and heart-rending to go out there. I always enjoy it. So.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you for sitting down with me today, sharing parts of your story. You and I could talk for the rest of the day.
Well,
but I just want to say thank you for all you do for our community, and thank you for sitting down with me today.
I'm very honored to have been on your program, and thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for watching Heart of Greenville. And I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors again, REMAX 3D Real Estate and Triton Networks. Thanks again.
Thank you for watching Heart of Greenville. This video series, which is designed to celebrate Greenville, Texas, is spearheaded by REMAX 3D Real Estate.